Okay, hello everyone. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. Today we're cooking a Thai noodle dish called Pad Thai. If you're not familiar with Pad Thai, it's probably one of the most popular Thai takeout dishes that you'll come across. At least here in the States, probably abroad too. But here in the States, it's super popular, and you probably will see it on pretty much every Thai takeout dish or Thai takeout menu. Because Americans love this stuff. You will see it made a lot of different ways. Probably the most Americanized way that I've seen it uses ketchup, which is kind of gross. Today we're not going to be making it with ketchup. Today we'll be making it with some tamarind sauce, or tamarind paste, excuse me. And then actually we're going to be borrowing a little bit of pad Thai sauce, and we're going to talk about what exactly pad Thai sauce is and why I don't love it. But we're going to be using it because it's what I could find. So. If you have any questions, feel free and drop your questions in the chat. I don't know everything about Pad Thai, but I know lots of stuff, so hopefully I can be helpful or informative, or at the very least fun to watch. If you're looking for the recipes, those all live over on YouTube, so some folks are already watching over on YouTube now. If you're watching on Reddit, that would be the YouTube channel at the bottom of the screen. That's this right down there. If you're watching on YouTube, it's the channel you're already on. Over on YouTube, there's new recipes. Those come out every Friday. So last Friday, we came out with a recipe for an egg foo young, which we cooked through live yesterday. And then the Friday before that, we did beef chow fun, which was super fun. That was actually a request that someone asked for. And then before that, we did, I think chicken katsu came before that, and I forget what else came after that. So, but those are out every Friday, so if you're looking for stuff like that, lots of fun recipes coming out over there every Friday. Pretty much everything that I cook on stream has a recipe video that goes along with it. This Pad Thai was a recipe that I put out on the channel a long time ago, I think back in September or October. So if you're looking for stuff like that, it's a good place to go. Some folks already know some of these recipes from GIF Recipe, the subreddit. And if you know those are probably a lot shorter. Usually the GIF recipes are no more than a minute long. The YouTube videos, they tend to be a lot longer, usually about 10 minutes, 8-10 minutes or so. We kind of talk through some of the decision making that goes behind some of those recipes, or some of the inspiration, stuff like that. So if you're looking for stuff like that, I recommend hopping over to YouTube, checking out that stuff. In the meantime though, we're starting off with the base layer of aromatics that are going to go into our Pad Thai today, which is going to be garlic, ginger, and then the whites of our green onions. So those are going to be the three elements of aromatics that are going to go into our wok fry. What we're actually going to do is we're going to toss that into our wok before we do anything else. We're going to bloom out all of the aromatic qualities from it in a little bit of peanut oil, which also is quite aromatic. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pull it out of the wok, and then we're going to add it to our sauce. So that's going to infuse those aromatic qualities to our sauce base, and then we're going to have this nice aromatic sauce that we're going to then go ahead and use in layers as we start batch cooking our wok fry. And that kind of gives this nice, interesting depth of flavor that's really pervasive throughout the dish. So kind of solves the problem if you've ever had a Pad Thai, or really any kind of dish, especially dishes that happen in wok fries, where one or two things in the stir fry, it has a flavor to it. So sometimes with veggie stir fries, for example, that ends up being maybe the pork that's in it, or a mapo tofu, maybe it's the pork, or sometimes it'll be the veggies, sometimes the bell peppers, and then the rest of the dish, it doesn't really have any flavor. So if you do things this happens to me actually all the time with beef chow fun, for example, where some parts of it will have flavor, usually noodles, because those are covered in sauce, but then the beef doesn't have any flavor, and that's because there's not a depth of flavor that's happening in the way that you build out those flavors. So the way that I found it's kind of tough to solve that problem in general, because especially in wok frying, because there are so many different ingredients to solve that with. But the way that we're going to solve that today is by seasoning each layer with the same sauce, and that kind of gives each layer of sauce an interesting layer of flavor, so that everything that we add to the sauce, or everything that we add to our stir fry, has a flavor to it, and it has some sort of taste to it, so that you don't end up eating some bland stuff with other things that's overly sauced. So tamarind, yeah. Lars, yeah, that's I love tamarind paste. Today what we're going to be using, it's actually not tamarind paste, so I'm going to talk about that in a second, as soon as I finish mincing this. Today what we're going to be using is actually pad thai sauce, which is, for whatever reason, the only thing that I can find lately. And the difference being is that pad thai sauce is essentially tamarind sauce. So that's essentially what it is, because that's really the main thing that goes into pad thai sauce, is really just tamarind sauce. And honestly, I don't know why you would need to make a sauce for pad thai sauce, because there's not much else that goes into it. It's pretty much just tamarind sauce. But the main difference in what we're using today, so this is our tamarind sauce today, it has a couple of things in it. Obviously, the first thing that's in it is sugar, which I don't like. I really disagree with that. And then the second and most important thing that's in it is tamarind concentrate, which is what we're really looking for. And then it has a couple other things in it. Mainly it has shallots, it has some plum, tomato paste, some salt, rice vinegar, some chilies, garlic, and then a bunch of coloring and stuff. All of that stuff are not things that I would love to have in it. Some of them are like helping to build flavor. Most of it though, most of those other things that are in our tamarind sauce are things that I just finished cutting up. So it had some garlic, we're about to chop up some ginger, or we just finished chopping up some ginger. We're about to chop up some shallots. We'll be adding a little bit of sugar in a couple of places. So all of those things, not really things that we actually need to add, but they're in the sauce, and that's what we have. So yeah, that's tamarind sauce. Yeah. Oh, good candy. Oh, tamarind candy. Yeah, I love candy. Tamarind candy. Hermina, how's it going? Yeah. Thanks for tuning in as always. Yeah, good tamarind candy. Those are super popular in like Hawaii. Cool. Let's do this first. So yeah, that's tamarind sauce. We're gonna get to that in a moment when we start working with our sauce. But before we get to that, we're going to finish chopping up our veggies first. So what I finished chopping up just now, that was 4 cloves of garlic and about 1 tablespoon or 1 inch's worth of ginger. You'll find that those two ingredients, they'll probably come up in almost every single recipe that I ever do. And that's because they're like really fundamental layers of umami. So as we try and like develop layers of umami, those end up being like the starting point and like the first thing that we do, because it sort of like sets the stage for everything else that we're going to be wok frying as we like build out layers of umami. Next up though, I don't always do this, but what we're doing today is some green onions. Sometimes I leave the green onions out of pad thais, especially mostly when I have cilantro on hand. I'll use cilantro instead of green onions. But when I do have green onions, especially in pad thais, what I like doing is chopping up the whites a little bit more thinly, like you just did, and then tossing these in with our aromatics. So today we have 3 aromatics. We're going to be using our garlic, ginger, and then the whites of our green onions. So these are the first 3 things that are going to go into our wok fry, and then what we're going to do is bloom out the aromatic qualities of them and a little bit of peanut oil. And then we're going to add that to our sauce and have this very, very aromatic sauce. The greens of your green onions, however, so that would be this bit, are not quite as durable. So you can't throw the greens of your green onions into a wok fry because they'll pretty much just wilt and basically disappear. Nothing will really happen. It won't really contribute to anything. So what I like doing, because they're so much more delicate, is reserving them as a garnish. So what I'm doing is slicing them up on a back slice. And then what we're going to do is set these aside, and these are going to be our finishing garnish, so we're going to add these at the very, very end. So I mentioned this a minute ago too, but when I have cilantro on hand, sometimes I'll skip the green onions and I'll use cilantro instead, which also works as a great garnish. But I don't have cilantro today, so we're going to be using some green onions. So that's our green onions. Krista, you my determination being able to cook so much during the week. How's it going, Krista? I haven't seen you in a bit. Yeah, I guess I do cook a lot. I guess it's mostly because I'm hungry and I have to eat dinner. I suppose I used to order takeout more, but not lately. Mostly because I have time to cook. But that's good. Yeah. Cool. Next up is some shallot. So super often when I don't have a shallot on hand, I'll probably end up using a purple onion, which I might have. No, I don't have. Sometimes I'll substitute out the purple onion with a quarter of. Sometimes I'll substitute out a purple shallot, excuse me, with a purple onion, so a quarter of a purple onion, which will work just fine. You can absolutely do that. It's gonna work fine. But if you have one on hand, especially if you remember to buy one at the grocery store like I did just now, shallots work really, really great, especially as like aromatic elements because they're a little bit more concentrated in flavor. So you can derive a little bit more out of the shallot than you would be able to from a purple onion. A purple onion is going to be just fine as a substitute. But if you have the foresight to remember to buy a shallot beforehand, they taste really, really good, especially when used as aromatic elements like what we're about to do, because they're going to be a little bit, you're going to get more out of it. So what I'm doing, just like I would do with an onion, is I'm going for my dice here. So that was about 5 or 6 slices down the center, 1 down the middle, and then we're just slicing straight down. So really, really important. Always remember to leave the roots on when you do small dices like that, and it will help hold the whole thing together, and it gets you a really, really even dice like we just did. So one more time, slices down the center. Then 1 down the middle, and we have this nice even dice. 4,000 subs by May 1st. Crystal, you're always more optimistic than me. I think my goal for May 1st is 3,500 subs by the end of May, by the end of April. But if we get hit 4,000, I'm game for that. I think my ultimate goal right now is actually to hit 5,000 subs by the end of June. So if we could do that, that's my real goal. But I think the whole stay on target for that would be 35 or 36, something like that. So, but honestly, I'm just like super stoked that so many people are like interested in watching me cook stuff like every day. So that's really cool. We were actually recently past 3,000 today. I think that actually literally happened today. It might have happened yesterday. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. But we definitely hit 3,000 either yesterday or today, which is pretty cool. And then also, if you're watching on YouTube, that's so cool. Thank you. Thank you for watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Reddit, thank you for watching on Reddit too. That's also really cool. I think like the sub followers on YouTube and Reddit are like neck and neck right now, which is cool. Lazy chill. Oh, is it safe to go to Chinatown nowadays? Depends what time. It also depends how old you are. So lazy chill, I'm guessing the reason that you asked that is because I mentioned this a lot. But I live in Oakland, Chinatown, which if you've been watching the news, this has actually been on like national news lately. But there have been a series of attacks on elderly Asian people here in Oakland, Chinatown, and in San Francisco, Chinatown too, which is really crazy. I don't know why people would be doing that. Literally, people have been just like jumping and attacking and mugging like 70, 80-year-old Asian guys and grandmas, which is crazy, and some of them are dying. A couple of them have passed away from their injuries, because basically all you really have to do to kill an ajumma is push her over hard enough and she'll basically keel over and die, because old people are very fragile. And it's really, really sad and really, really tragic. And I'm a part of a bunch of community groups that's working on like helping do something about that. The main one that I love is doing community walks, basically just going out at night and like being not an old person, and I guess that's probably enough to stop people from pushing old people over. But yes, that is. Thank you for bringing that up, though. That's really sad. But I guess to answer your question, yeah, it's fine. During the day, it's fine. During the nighttime, there's nothing really happening in Chinatown anyway. So during the nighttime, that's probably when like the more dangerous stuff is happening. But also, if you're like a young person, you'll probably be fine. Cool. All right, so what I'm doing next is some Thai chilies. Full of good deeds, yeah, yeah. Remind me, I'll probably repost this tomorrow too. But I have a couple of links that I'll share that are like good ways of like contributing to the Oakland community, especially if you live in the Oakland or San Francisco Bay Area. There are a couple of really cool community groups that are doing some good stuff. But anyway, I digress. Back to what we're doing. Right now I'm chopping up, these are some Thai chilies. Thai chilies, obviously, as the name implies, are very, very hot. They're chilies. I would say on par with like a Serrano chili. If you don't like heat, if you don't like spicy stuff, I would say either just leave them out, or you could probably slice them open and pull the seeds out. That would make it a little bit less spicy. My spiciness preference is usually about 6 Thai chilies. But I will say is that what I think the flavor of a Thai chili all comes from its spice. So a Thai chili has a very, very unique type of heat that comes from it. And in my opinion, it's probably one of the most quintessential flavors to Thai food is the Thai chili. So that flavor that we associate with Thai chili, at least for me, the things that I associate with Thai food come from the Thai chili and also fish sauce. So those are the big two for me. So I like going heavy both on fish sauce and on Thai chilies because those are like really the quintessential flavors of Thai food. So, but if you don't like heat, pull these seeds out or just leave them out entirely, and it will make this a lot less spicy. You could also use a more tame pepper too. I've done this recipe a lot with like jalapenos, work really fine or work really well. You could also use a Fresno, a Serrano. You could use a bird's eye chili. Any of those will work. My watch is 2 minutes behind. Maybe. Yeah, it's an old watch. Cool, so that's our chilies. Yeah. Channel of choice, yeah, thank you. Okay, cool. So next up, what we're doing is some carrots here. So I'm gonna peel, and then we're gonna julienne 2 medium carrots. If you're keeping track, carrots do not belong in a traditional pad Thai. Carrots, they're definitely an American adaptation of pad Thai. But I think it tastes really good, so I'm gonna add it. But if you're keeping track and you're trying to make a really, really traditional pad Thai, you probably won't see carrots in a pad Thai. Probably the more traditional thing to use would be bean sprouts, which is kind of similar. It's also like a sturdy veggie that mostly doesn't taste like much. But today I don't have any bean sprouts. If you've been watching the streams, yesterday I used up my bean sprouts during the egg foo young stream, so those are all gone. So since we don't have any more bean sprouts, what we're using is some carrots instead. But I guess all that to say is you can essentially make a pad Thai with whatever veggies you want. You could probably throw bell pepper in. You could throw some cucumbers in. That would be good. Maybe some zucchinis. That would probably taste really good too. What's more important though is that we make sure that we chop them properly. So in my opinion, chopping your carrots in the julienne cut is going to be pretty important for this particular version, which I wish that were not the case because I hate doing julienne cuts. But I actually think that it's super, super important because otherwise you're not going to be able to get the right texture with your carrots. So we're going for our julienne cut. Might be a little bit sloppy today, so I don't really care about it that much. But essentially what we're doing is chopping them in half, and then we're going with slices down the center here. And then what we're going to do is flip those on their sides and stack them on top of each other, and then slice downward, and that's going to give us these nice strips of carrots. You could also just do planks too if you want. Planks would be basically just stopping at this point. Right here, and that would essentially be a plank. In my experience, that kind of like sometimes causes the carrots to stick out a little bit more than I like because they're not quite shaped close enough to the noodles, and then they're a little bit awkward in size in your bite. Either it's behind or yeah. Yeah. Oh, is there gonna be peanut in the food? Yeah, there's gonna be a couple of sources of peanut. So. Pad Thai is one of the only recipes where I do insist on using peanut oil. So that's because peanut is one of the most important flavors of Pad Thai. It comes from the peanut. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to straight up add peanuts to it. So we're going to add some peanuts on top, and that's going to be part of our garnish. And then what we're going to use is some honey glazed or honey roasted peanuts, which one of my favorite new secret ingredients is from honey roasted peanuts. But also I think like a big part of that quality of peanut, where that flavor is going to come from, is the peanut oil that we're going to be cooking in. But yeah, Deller Smash, yeah, I'm pretty sure the stream is probably like a minute behind. Because especially, that might specifically be true for the Reddit stream, because that one seems to be slightly behind all the time. Oh, is there any reason to peel the carrots? I suppose you could probably eat it without. You could definitely, actually, I take that back. You could definitely eat the carrot without peeling it. The main reason why I like peeling carrots is because I also didn't wash it. So if you don't wash the carrots, then that's the side of the carrot that's unpeeled is literally the part that probably the farmer was touching. So if you don't wash it, you probably you either want to wash it or you probably want to peel it. So that's probably the real reason why I don't like, or why I insist on peeling my carrots. But also the exterior, like first layer of skin of the carrot, it's like a little bit fuzzy and like a little bit dry. And that's just because it's a root veggie, so that's like literally the part that was in the ground. So it's still totally edible, and if you like don't have a peeler, or if you want to save some time, which is like not that much time, you'll probably save like 20 seconds. But if you really don't want to peel it, you probably don't have to. Just like the ginger, same with ginger too, which is also a root veggie. So you can totally eat that skin and it would be fine. But I personally, I just don't like the texture of the skins of carrot. But you will also notice, you probably can't see this on the definition of the camera, but I definitely, like, I'm not nearly as like careful about like making sure every bit of the exterior skin is peeled off, because I just don't care. Yeah. If dirt was a vegetable, it would be bean sprouts. Yeah. Actually, I feel like bean sprouts don't really taste like anything. They kind of just like occupy space for me. But that's a good point, though. Actually, I would say is if dirt was a vegetable, potato would probably be it. That's because potatoes, a russet potato actually, like legitimately, if you bite into a raw russet potato, it actually tastes like dirt. It's straight up just tastes like dirt. Yeah. Oh, have I ever worked in a kitchen? Yeah, I'm precise with the cutting and peeling. No, I have not. I've not worked in a professional kitchen. I have not been trained as a professional chef. I have no professional experience and no real qualification to tell people information about cooking. But here I am. I went to school for music, and before COVID happened, I used to play music for a living with a band. We were called Trace Repeat. Trace Repeat technically still exists. But we haven't done anything since COVID happened, so. During the time that COVID happened, I started this channel, which is what I do now, I guess. But no kitchen jobs for me. I don't think I would do well in a kitchen. Alright, so one more carrot, or piece of carrot, to go. And that should do it. So, that's our julienne cut. As you can tell, that took quite a while. The julienne cut, one of my least favorites, because they take a long time. And I honestly don't even think that was a great julienne cut. I was getting a little sloppy towards the end. So if you want, you could probably also do planks and it would work out fine. But I kind of like going with the julienne cut. Ooh, a sea scallop pad thai. That's a good one. Yeah, probably like the really traditional pad thai would contain shrimp or prawns, which I have not been including because I don't really like shrimp, so I have not included those in a while. But definitely fishy elements, that's a big part of, not just pad thai, but like Thai food in general. Cool. Next up, this is just 2 eggs that I'm going to whisk up. And these are going to go into our wok fry at the very, very end. We're going to coat our rice noodles in egg. And that's going to be like the element of rice noodles that you would probably associate with pad thai. Also with like really any kind of rice noodle stir fry that comes from Thai food. So pad thai, pad see ew, pad kimao, all of those things. They have an egg or a couple of eggs that are usually added at the very, very end. And what that does is it coats the whole rice noodle in some eggs. So I think of it like it's the exact opposite of how you would approach fried rice, so a Chinese fried rice, because in a Chinese fried rice we would be adding those eggs pretty early, so probably like the second or third thing that goes into the wok fry. Because what we're trying to do is create, in a fried rice, what we're trying to do is create these nice big curds of eggs. So we're looking for like scrambled eggs in those fried rices. In a pad thai, we're looking for the exact opposite thing. We're not looking for scrambled eggs. What we're looking for is some nice, nice egg or egg-coated rice noodles rather than scrambled eggs. Ooh, Cactus on Tree. Who's my inspirational cook? Ooh, good question. I watch a lot of chefs, obviously. So if you are a '90s kid like me, probably the #1 chef that you probably know, if you're from the '90s and you follow this channel, you probably should know who Martin Yan is. So Martin Yan, in the '90s, had a PBS show. I think it was on PBS called Yan Can Cook, which is where the namesake of this channel comes from, which is called Who Can Cook. And I used to watch his stuff like pretty much every weekend. He always he would. Martin Yan is actually still alive. He's doing some cool stuff. I think he has a line of frozen foods that are out with Costco right now. I follow him on Instagram, which is fun. But his whole stick was he would chop really, really fast with a giant cleaver, and then have this like super dorky look, and he would just look you straight into the camera and then just chop like crazy fast, like the fastest chopping that I have ever seen. Which for me, when I was a kid, was super entertaining. So that's probably one of the earliest inspirations for cooking for me. Was Martin Yan. But lately, I've been watching a lot of stuff on YouTube. So obviously, probably all of the ones that everyone else should be watching too. So I love Kenji Lopez's channel. He's got like some really informative like food science based information that comes up on his channel, which is really, really interesting because a lot of the times what he's talking about is like the food science explanation behind like why you do certain things when you cook certain things, and like why certain foods behave the way that they do. And when you know have that scientific information behind the way that those foods behave, then you can make larger decisions based on that information. That camera is going to keep on turning off, so I'm sorry about that in advance. It will shut off every 30 minutes. Yeah, so yeah, that's anyway, excuse me, that's Kenji Lopez's channel. He's got some cool stuff that's on YouTube. What else? Who else am I really interested in lately? We've been talking about the Walks of Life blog. We've been talking about that a lot lately. I've been following them. They have some really cool, interesting stuff like family-based recipes that they're like approaching. There's a really cool one that we talked about this yesterday on the stream too. It's called Chinese Cooking Demystified, and the stuff that they're cooking is all that. I think it's run by a couple, 2 people. I think they're maybe in a relationship. And I think they live in Guangzhou, somewhere in China, at least mainland China, which means that all of the ingredients that they're using a lot of them are things that you would not be able to find in like America. So there's basically the exact opposite of the way that I approach cooking, is they're just straight up using like no holds barred, just like the most legit form of Chinese cooking that you can imagine, which is really interesting, but sometimes a little bit inaccessible because it's so hard to like reproduce some of the things that they're cooking because some of those are just ingredients that you will never, ever, ever get your hands on. But still fun to watch though. Why would I bite into a raw potato? Good question. I did not actually try that, but I did watch that on a Bon Appetit recipe, Bon Appetit video with Emile, and I think it was Every Way of Cooking a Potato. That he has that series. That's Every Way of Cooking X, Y, and Z, and he did it with potatoes. And what he did was, I think he was, I forget. I think usually that series that series starts out informative, so it's like Every Way of Cooking a Potato. So sometimes a lot of the things I think with the potato will be like things like how to mash a potato, how to like bake a potato, poach a potato, all those things, and then like usually that will devolve into like really absurd ways of cooking a potato. And I think he had like done it with a hairdryer or something, and then he said, "Yeah, it tastes like dirt," which I believe that makes sense because they literally come out of the ground. The potato is literally the part that's in the ground, so obviously it does taste like dirt. Yeah. Cool. Oh, M Groups, yeah, oh cool, yeah. Yeah, it's a pleasure to cook for you, that's fun. Yeah, thank you. Please do subscribe over on YouTube. Real quick, so this is our chicken. That was some chicken thigh. I just talked through the whole thing, but that was some chicken thigh. I seasoned it with a pinch of kosher salt, and then I think probably the most important thing was maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of cornstarch. What we're going to do is we're coating the chicken in a little bit of cornstarch. We did the same thing on the stream yesterday with the egg foo young too. Is we're coating it in a little bit of cornstarch, and what that does is it slows down the cooking process on the exterior of the chicken, but only the exterior. So that aids in a lot of wok cooking. You'll see that happen in a lot of types of wok cooking, especially with chicken, but also with like steak, pork, and I probably most often will do it in scrambled eggs, which is why it came up yesterday. And essentially what it's doing is it's slowing down the exterior cooking process of whatever it's coating to make or compensate for the fact that wok heat is very, very hot. So if you don't coat it in that cornstarch, the problem that you run into is probably one of two things. Either the exterior of the chicken is going to finish cooking before the interior does, and then you're going to end up with chicken that's still raw on the inside. Or you could finish cooking it on the interior and the exterior is going to overcook and you're going to end up with rubbery chicken. So both not great solutions. So what we do is put in a little bit of cornstarch and it slows down the cooking process on the exterior. Just long enough, not very much, but just long enough so that you can like even out the cooking process so the interior is nice and cooked and the exterior is just seared quite right. An upvote is free, yeah, cool. Please do upvote, yeah. Yeah, heating up frozen ravioli in boiling water is totally still cooking. That absolutely still counts. Yeah, frozen Costco ravioli. I actually used to eat those when I was a kid. That and frozen Costco's General Tso's chicken. What am I doing? Oh yeah, sauce. Let's do the slime first. Do I have a lime? I do. Alright, so real quick, I'm just slicing up. These are going to be a couple of lime wedges. What we're going to do is add these on the very, very top of our wok fry when we finish, and that's going to be where all of the brightness comes from. Super often you will see me using acidity. So acidity comes from a lot of different places. You might find it coming from things like vinegar, or you could use it like alcohols, so like Shaoxing wine or sake. All of those have some sort of acidic element to it. Lime or citrus is another really great source of acidity. And really, really often what you will see me doing is cooking off some of that acidity so that it kind of takes off of the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use half of this lime, and the half of it is going to go as a garnish. So we're going to garnish our finished pad thai with some lime, and that's going to go right on top. And then the other half, so this is going to be a 1/4 of a wedge, is going to go straight into our sauce base. What we're going to do is cook off some of the acidic elements of this lime, and then that's going to give us this nice, like, mellowed out lime element that's going to blend into our sauce. Oh, where's the whiskey? Yeah, no whiskey today. Today I'm drinking water. Maybe later, though. So for our sauce, though, I'm starting off with a 1/4 of my lime wedge going into our sauce bowl. Followed next by, this is going to be 4 tablespoons of fish sauce. 4 tablespoons, or I guess a 1/4 cup. Followed finally by what you should be using is 4 tablespoons of tamarind paste. I do not have 4 tablespoons of tamarind paste today. This looks closer to 2 tablespoons, maybe a little bit less. I probably should have picked up more tamarind paste, but I forgot. We're going to do our best. And that's probably all of the tamarind paste that we're going to get out of this. If you're following the recipe, though, that should call for 4 tablespoons of tamarind paste, not 2 plus some water shaken out of the jar. It will still work out okay. And that's going to be our sauce. Usually I'm going to add a pinch of salt, too. Now, if you're following the recipe, we want to be light on the salt here. So the salt is going to start getting in the way of some of that umami, so especially the fishy umami. Even though fish sauce and tamarind paste both have a lot of salt, they're very salty. As we add more salt, that's going to start getting in the way of that flavor of umami that comes from that savory thing. So that to me is the big difference between what is umami and what is salty. So umami and salty are 2 different things. They're not the same. That's kind of like saying that salty and savory are the same thing. They're actually very, very different. Even though it's something that's savory is technically salty, something that is salty is not necessarily savory. So as we add more salt, what that does is starts contradicting some of those qualities of umami. So go easy on the salt. And the other thing that I have started doing is avoiding soy sauce in most, especially pad thais, because it's not the flavor that we're looking for. This shows the best. Very realistic, yeah. Yeah, I guess that is very realistic. I kind of just wish I remembered to buy more tamarind sauce, though. Cool. And that is it. The last thing that we're going to do is use up some noodles here. So these are our fresh pad thai noodles. These are very fresh. We don't have to do anything because they're so fresh. All I did really was pull them apart, and they're ready to go already, so I'm not going to do much. These are going to go at the very, very end, right before our eggs. And that's going to be it. So, hopping over to the stove. I'm going to start preheating my wok. I probably should have preheated it earlier, but we're going to get that heated up. That'll probably take about a minute, minute and a half, and then we can start cooking. Yeah. Cool. Hello to everyone just tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time tuning into this series, we're here streaming every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 6:30 PST. With new recipes, those are coming out over on YouTube every Friday. So last Friday we came out with a recipe for egg foo young, which is a super fun egg approach or egg dish from Chinese dim sum cooking. Friday before that we did, I believe that was beef chow fun, and then before that was chicken katsu. I forget what else came out. Lots of fun recipes coming out every Friday, so if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, that's over at the bottom of the screen if you're watching on Reddit. If you're watching on YouTube's channel, you're already on. You did it. Those are out every Friday, so if you haven't checked that out, lots of fun stuff coming up soon. This Friday is going to be a recipe for a dandan mian, a second version of dandan mian. We've actually done a version of dandan mian using peanut butter, though, which is my favorite, Americanized version of dandan mian. The second version that we're doing today, this Friday, is using sesame paste, which is a very, very traditional approach to dandan mian. And it's probably how you would most traditionally see dandan mian prepared. The version the version that's coming out this Friday is a little bit unique in that it actually doesn't contain any meat, because it's imitating a particular version of dandan mian that you'll find here in Oakland from a place called Good to Eat, and it has no meat whatsoever, and it's replaced with deep fried shallots, which is going to be really good. So that's coming out this Friday. If you're interested in stuff like that, I recommend hopping over to the YouTube channel. Lots of fun content popping up over there every Friday. Yeah. Cool. All right, so if you're not sure if your wok is hot enough, what we're looking for is all of that smoke. So if you notice, my wok is starting to smoke quite a bit like this, like what you're seeing right now. That's a sign that you have lots of heat. Usually what I like doing is letting it pass that smoke point. So once it starts smoking, I like to let it go for at least a minute, maybe a minute or two. And that just makes sure that it's really, really hot, because your wok needs to be absolutely as hot as it possibly can get. Otherwise, you're going to undercook things, and things are going to start getting mushy. That's really, really important with noodle dishes. because we're going to be throwing a lot of stuff in that wok, which means it's got to be really, really hot. Cool. All right, so first up, I'm going to start with a bit of peanut oil. So I'm going to borrow a little bit from how you would approach wok cooking in a restaurant. And what I'm doing is I'm adding, that was about 4 tablespoons of peanut oil. And what we're going to do is give it a long yao. So I'm coating the wok in my oil, and that's going to create our non-stick surface. But what we're trying to do right now is we're going to bloom out our aromatics, which means we're going to bloom out all of those aromatic qualities, and then we're going to remove them and put them back into our sauce. So that's going to be really important because when they go in the sauce, if it has too much oil in it, it's going to cause the sauce to break. And then there's going to be this layer of peanut oil on top of your sauce, which is not what we're looking for. We need it to incorporate. So we don't want too much sauce in the wok when we start cooking, which means, but I guess I should backtrack. When you do your long yao, though, there is a minimum amount of oil that you need. And usually for me, that's around 4 tablespoons. If you add any less than that, you're not going to be able to get a good coating to your wok. So what we're doing is coating it in about 4 tablespoons of peanut oil here. And then I'm going to remove some. So I'm taking back maybe about 3 tablespoons of that peanut oil. And that's just to make sure that we don't over-season or add too much peanut oil to our wok when it ends up in our sauce. So now that's what's left is probably about a tablespoon of peanut oil. And then what we're going to do is bloom out our aromatics. That's our garlic or ginger, followed by my garlic and the whites of my green onions. And then I'm going to let that go just long enough until it's fragrant. That's usually about 10-15 seconds. A little bit more oil here. And that's what we're just looking for right now is some fragrancy. So as long as you start smelling ginger and garlic, you know you're probably at the right point. And then what we're doing is removing it from our wok and adding it to our sauce base. And that's going to infuse our sauce with all of those aromatic elements. So we have peanuts, garlic, ginger, and green onions infusing into our sauce. You'll notice since we didn't use too much oil, the sauce is also not that oily either, which is really, really important. A teaspoon of sesame oil, yeah, that's a good one. I have not used sesame oil quite a bit in this pad thai recipe. That might be a good addition though. Okay, so back over to our wok. I'm gonna wipe it down. We don't want to leave any of this stuff behind because it's eventually gonna start burning, which is not gonna be good. So I'm removing all of this stuff from my wok. I'm giving it a wipe down. We don't need it to be like super clean, but we do just need to make sure that there's no debris left behind. So no like leftover ginger or garlic, none of that stuff left behind. Because if it stays in the wok, it's eventually going to start to burn. And then you're going to have weird burnt stuff in your stir fry, which is not good. Also a mistake that I've made many times. And then I'm waiting to reheat my wok again, so you'll notice it's starting to smoke again. I'm going to let that go a little bit past that smoking point. And kind of let it get really, really hot before we start cooking our next element. Because the next thing that we're going to cook is our chicken. So we need that thing to be really, really hot before we start going. It's always on when you're already in bed. Oh, that's cool. You can totally try cooking it later too. Oops. Probably should have added this. That's fine. All right, so I'm adding peanut oil to my wok again, and then I'm giving it one more long yao. And this time we're going to leave it in the wok. And then start with our Thai chilies. Super, super important when you use Thai chilies, anytime that you're sauteing chilies. Make sure your windows are open. Those things are going to smoke up quite a bit. And I will almost 100%. I'm gonna cough. Probably gonna cough. Then I'm adding my chicken. That's my chicken thigh going in. And I'm adding let's make it 3 tablespoons of our sauce here. We're gonna give it a saute. Usually for me that takes about 2 to 3 minutes, especially with that cornstarch coating, to cook everything all the way through. At this point, you're gonna start noticing that the cornstarch is doing quite a bit of work. So without the cornstarch, the exterior of the chicken will probably be done cooking already. It would probably be cooked all the way through. But with that cornstarch, you'll notice that it's starting to cook a lot slower, which is super, super important because the interior of our chicken is not nearly finished cooking. We're still like a good minute and a half away. Ooh, is there a Thai dish that uses acid to cook ceviche? I'll have to think about that. Not that I know of, but I'll have to think about that. I'm sure that there is, but I can't think of one off the top though. Good question. Yeah. Cool. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start employing a little bit of batch cooking here. So I'm cooking my chicken up. It doesn't need to be fully cooked through because it is gonna go back into the wok. But we're looking for it to be like 90 to 95% cooked. So like maybe 30, 40 seconds before you would otherwise pull it out of the wok. We're gonna pull it out. And then we're gonna let that last bit of cooking happen at the very, very end when we add everything back to the wok. Do you also use cornstarch when you cook with shrimp? Definitely, I would definitely use a little bit of cornstarch. Not too much, but like maybe a 1/4 teaspoon. And just sort of coat everything in that cornstarch, and it will slow down the cooking process a little bit. Generally, when I cook really any kind of meat or anything that's delicate enough to overcook, I will add a little bit of cornstarch. So shrimp, especially because shrimp is really, really delicate. I'm probably going to want a little bit of cornstarch going on there. Good question, though. All right, so we're using a bit of batch cooking technique here, and I'm removing my chicken from the wok. And then we're going to reheat. I'm going to wipe this down one more time. Actually, I should rinse it out. And then what we're going to do is reheat our wok one more time, and we're going to cook our veggies next. So if you were watching someone cook a pad thai in a restaurant, you probably would not see them remove all of these elements as much. So the reason that I keep removing things from the wok is if we just added everything to the wok one at a time and left everything in there, obviously there's enough space in the wok to add things in. But what would happen is every time I add something new to the wok, it's going to start dropping the temperature of the wok, and eventually the wok is not going to be able to get hot enough to cook in anymore. So if you've ever had a stir fry that's like kind of like mushy or like a little bit porridgey, kind of has the consistency of old oatmeal, that comes from woks that are not hot enough. So if you've ever cooked a stir fry on medium heat, like in a Teflon nonstick pan or something like that, that all comes from the fact that the wok wasn't hot enough when it was being cooked. And I have had many stir fries come out that way. And the way that we solve that is by removing things from the wok as we cook. So I just cooked my chicken, and then I pulled it out. I also cooked my ginger and garlic and then pulled it out. And then what we're going to do at the very, very end right now is our veggies. So we're going to cook up our carrots and shallots, and then we're going to add everything back to the wok at the very end. So basically what we're ensuring is that while things are cooking, so during the time when things are actually being sauteed, everything is being cooked with a wok that's relatively empty, which means that the wok is still nice and hot. So if we tried to stack things on top of each other, we would end up with a really, really mushy stir fry, or like a really like porridgey rice noodle quality, which is not good. So I'm adding a little bit more peanut oil here. I'm going to go easy on the peanut oil at this point because remember that we just poured out a bunch of peanut oil that is eventually going to get back into our stir fry here. So that's maybe 2 tablespoons of peanut oil. And then we're going to saute up our veggies next. That's my carrots and my shallots. And just like with our chicken, I'm adding, this is going to be 3-4 tablespoons of our sauce here. And then we're going to give this a quick flash cook. This probably will only go for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. We don't want these to be overcooked. We're not looking for like fully cooked or like mushy or like really thoroughly cooked veggies here. We're really just looking to take these beyond like just slightly past the point of raw. And then after that, we're gonna stop cooking. We don't want them to go too far. Otherwise, you won't have the quality of veggie that you're looking for. Yeah, similar dish to tartare. That's essentially how tartare is cooked. It's in a lemon. I think tartare is cooked in lemon. Or is it lime? I forget. I think it's lemon. Is it lemon? I can't remember. Yeah. But tartare is similar to ceviche, but it's with beef. What I actually was thinking of is probably something more similar to poke, which is not cooked at all. Poke is just raw tuna. But I was probably, if there's an equivalent in Thai food, it's probably something similar to poke. But I just don't know that. I haven't had much in the way of dishes like that. All right, so carrots are looking good. I'm gonna add my chicken back to the wok. We're also gonna be adding quite a bit of chicken fat going back into the wok, you'll notice. And that's gonna give us that nice loose and like saucy quality here. Woo. Finally, we're adding our rice noodles into our wok. And you'll notice, so you could listen closely, that as soon as I added all of those things back to my wok, it's going to start losing a lot of heat. So you know you're losing heat when it stops sizzling quite as much. So you can listen. Not quite as aggressive as sizzle going on here. That's okay when you're cooking and you're adding everything back to the wok at the very end. That's okay because we're basically done cooking at this point. So we're not too concerned with the fact that we don't have high heat anymore because there's nothing that's still cooking. But if you are cooking and you still have to like cook your chicken, or if you're still trying to cook veggies and you notice that your wok is not behaving like it would normally be with extremely high heat, so if you're losing all of that sizzle, that's a real big problem and you need to stop doing what you're doing. Last thing going in is our eggs. And then I'm going to give a little bit of time to let those eggs set. We should be ready to eat. Oops. Yeah. Ooh, kaffir lime leaves. Ooh, you got a tree. Yeah, I have not been able to find any kaffir lime leaves, but you got a tree though. That's a good idea. I don't even know where to start with those in the Bay Area. If you do know where to find kaffir lime leaves, please let me know because I've been trying to cook. Charlie, I'm guessing why you're asking is because I'm trying. So for folks who don't know, I've been trying to cook up or figure out a recipe for a tom yum, which is a Thai like soup. I guess it's like a Thai soup. That's what you would call it. The reason that I'm working on a tom yum is because I'm trying to reproduce the soup that comes from Raya and the Last Dragon, the new Disney movie that just came out. In that movie, they make a soup that's basically a fictional soup. But the way that it looks, basically based on like what goes into that soup, I'm guessing it's a tom yum soup. And I would like to do one, and then we can do a recipe video for it. But I don't know where to find kaffir lime leaves. The other thing that I don't know that's probably like really, really critical to tom yum is galangal root. And as best I can tell, I think that you can substitute galangal root with ginger and a little bit of extra lime. And I think it will probably come close. But I don't think that there's a substitute for kaffir lime leaves. I think you have to have kaffir lime leaves. What I've read is that you could substitute it with bay leaf, but I don't believe that. That doesn't sound right. Cool. All right, eggs are looking set, so I think we're about ready to eat. Alright, last thing that we want to do every time that we cook in a wok, especially if you're cooking in a carbon steel wok, and especially if you just finished cooking eggs, because eggs are really sticky, is clean your wok. Super important, good wok care. Clean it while it's hot. Don't try and clean your wok while it's cold, which we would do if you like cooking on, if you're used to cooking on non-stick, which you definitely want to let your non-stick pans cool down before you clean them, because it will fracture the Teflon coating. In a carbon steel wok, a good carbon steel wok at least, it's not going to warp when it gets too cold or like when you immediately cool it down. So give that thing a rinse before it cools down, because while the wok is hot, your seasoning is still going to give you this nice non-stick coating. So, and this is especially important when you finish cooking anything with eggs, because the eggs are going to start sticking to the wok, like you'll notice. There's all of this stuff that's still stuck behind, more than usual. That's okay, it comes right off. Just use the back side of your wooden spoon. And then give it one more rinse. And that's pretty much all cleaned up. So super, super important, especially if you just finished cooking something with egg in it. That stuff is for sure going to start sticking to the wok. At least a little bit, leave some residue. So we want to give that thing a cook or a clean before it cools down, because while the wok is hot, it's still very, very non-stick. So it will still come off. When it cools down, and then if you let it cool down and then try and clean it, you're going to have a lot of trouble getting that stuff off. And then you're probably going to have to do things like scrubbing and using Brillo pads, steel wool, stuff like that. All things that will probably be okay. But if you don't have to use it, you're probably going to be in better shape in the long term, because it's going to protect the seasoning of your wok. And then very last, just like we do with a cast iron pan, I'm coating everything with some oil. And that's just going to make sure that nothing starts to carbonize or rust. You want to coat everything, so remember to coat the bottom, the back side. If you're really committed, you probably should be coating the handle too. Literally anything that's made of carbon steel should be coated. I don't coat the handle because I don't feel like taking the handle guard off, but there it is. Almost forgot. And the last thing that I'm going to do, I almost forgot to do this, but the last thing that we're going to do before we plate this up is crush up some peanuts. So it's probably one of the most iconic elements of a pad thai, is that crushed peanut finish. So I'm just doing this in a mortar and pestle. If you don't have a mortar and pestle, just give it a good smack with something flat. Maybe you could even put it in a bag and then step on it really hard. I know it would probably work out fine too. I like to leave mine, you can do it however you want. I like to leave mine just slightly early, so pull them out like a little bit earlier before they're finished being crushed. So that kind of gives us these like nice odd bits and pieces of peanut, some of which are larger, some of which are smaller. And that gives us this nice variety in the peanut. And now we're ready to plate this up. Looks good, yeah, thank you. So I think we got away with a little bit less pad thai sauce or tamarind sauce. But hopefully, if you remember to buy pad thai sauce or tamarind sauce, please do that. And then you don't have to do what I just did. Alright. So for our garnish, that's going to be our crushed peanuts. Followed by our greens of our green onions. And finally our lime. So that's going to give us this nice extra brightness that comes from the lime juice. And that's it. Give this a taste. Yeah. Yeah, super, super tasty. I love that addition of that last bit of lime. And it kind of gives that a little bit extra brightness. Especially because when you cook off lime juice, it kind of takes the edge off a little bit, which is nice because it kind of like layers into that sauce a little bit better. But I also miss some of that extra brightness. So like kind of finishing with just a little bit more lime juice gives it this nice bit of extra brightness that is kind of lost when you start cooking off lime juice. But also like lots of like really, really crisp elements, so the chicken is perfectly well cooked. The veggies are still nice and crisp, but not overcooked. We don't have that really, really porridgey quality to wok fries that you will often associate with woks that are undercooked. So yeah, 3,000. Yeah, 3,000. Let's go. Slaney, I think we actually hit 3,000, so we're probably working on 4,000 right now. I think we're working on 3,500 right now. But 4,000. Hey, let's go to 4,000. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. I'm talking to some folks over on YouTube right now. If you're paying attention on Reddit, I'm wondering who I'm talking to. We're working our way to 3,500 subs by the end of the month. Some folks, Crystal, and a couple other folks think we can hit 4,000 by the end of the month. But if you want to help us hit that subscriber goal, hop over to YouTube and check out what's going on over there. If you're watching on Reddit, it's the YouTube channel at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, it's the channel you're already on. Over on YouTube, there's a whole series, a whole list of everything that I'm going to be cooking over the next couple of weeks. I think it goes out like 2 or 3 weeks now. So if you were watching over on YouTube, you would have known a couple weeks ago that I'd be cooking pad thai today. So if you're interested in stuff like that, check out the channel. There's also new recipes coming out every Friday. So we're streaming every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 6:30 PST. New recipes coming out every Friday. So last Friday, so a couple of days ago, we came out with a recipe for egg foo young, which was really, really tasty. Friday before that, we did beef chow fun. Before that, chicken katsu. I think curry was before that. I can't remember back far enough anymore. But those recipes are coming out every Friday. There's a couple of series that are going on right now. Probably the one that people are super stoked on is the Chinese American Hack series. That one's super fun, where I've basically been deconstructing a lot of classic dishes that come from like Americanized Chinese food, like really, really Americanized Chinese food. Things like General Tso's chicken, honey sesame chicken, things like that. And kind of taking a look at what those dishes would look like if they're not Americanized. So what they would look like if they came from like traditional wok cooking, which can be really interesting because a lot of those things are not Chinese. They're just American. So it's basically trying to reimagine American food in the context of Chinese food, which is weird. So if you're interested in stuff like that, hop over to the YouTube channel and check out what's going on over there. Lots of fun stuff going on. Those are out every Friday, and we're also live streaming Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So 3,500. Charlie, yeah, 10K. So yeah, that's the real goal is we're working our way to 10,000 by the end of June, which, if my math is correct, I think should be 3,500 by the end of May, and we should hit 5K by the end of June, and then 10K by the end of the year. So that's the goal. Let's grow things. Say no to soggy cilantro. Soggy pad thai? Do I ever use cilantro? I use cilantro all the time. I forgot to buy cilantro today. Actually, what I have is some parsley, which, if you're paying attention, parsley and cilantro, not the same thing. They look very, very similar, but they are not the same thing. So I have parsley, but no cilantro. Make sure that you don't mistake the two, which I've done a lot. So. For whatever reason, parsley and cilantro, they're sold right next to each other, and they look very, very similar. They smell and taste very, very different, so don't mix those two things up. What's the difference between a garbanzo bean and a chippy? I believe they're the same thing. I'm pretty sure it's just two different names for the same thing. I might be wrong. I haven't worked with garbanzo beans and chickpeas quite often, but yeah, cilantro and pad thai. Yeah, that's what I mean. So so super often. So today I used green onions because it's what I have. But super often I will finish it with cilantro instead. And that cilantro also a very, very common and very traditional garnish to pad thai. But I don't have any cilantro today, so we're using green onions. Also pretty common too. The other great thing about using green onions is that you can make use of the whites of those green onions. So focus. There we go. Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. I think I got everyone. Let me know if I missed any questions. I know I miss questions all the time because I'm not paying attention. So feel free and repeat yourself if I missed anything. We're not streaming tomorrow, but Thursday we're going to be doing. Thursday we're doing probably one of my favorite things to cook of all time. Definitely one of my favorite things to eat when I was a kid, which is a Shanghainese lion's head meatball. Which, if you've never had Chinese meatballs, that's essentially probably the most iconic one that you'll see in like Chinese cooking is the Shanghainese lion's head meatball. Kind of reminds me of like a little bit of like a Swedish meatball, but they're much, much larger, like the size of like basically the size of a baseball. And they're served family style, and then you can chop them up. And really, really tasty. So we're going to be doing that on Thursday. And then Friday we're coming out with the recipe for dandang mian. So that's coming up this Friday. And that's going to be part of our Bay Area restaurant hack series. So. Lion's head, is it a mushroom? I'm not sure. I don't know why it's called lion's head meatball. Like the origin, so the Chinese name is called shizi to. To meaning head, shizi meaning, shizi I believe means lion's head. To, I know that to means head. And the other half I'm really rusty on my Chinese, but yeah, I'm not sure why it's called lion's head. I think it's just like the name that they gave it. But yeah, it comes from Shanghainese cuisine though. Ooh, what is tamarind? You get it when you make your own pad thai, but you have no idea. Yeah, tamarind is a root, and probably more commonly outside of Thai cooking, you would see it as a powder, and that's like probably like a spice. So you would see it as a spice. So I think someone mentioned this earlier too, but one of like a really, really common in Hawaii, and I think it comes up in Mexican candies too, is tamarind coating to candies. So in Hawaii, at least, you find a lot of tamarind coated Sour Patch Kids. And that's like a really common like Hawaiian candy. And that's coated in the powder of tamarind. So the way that tamarind paste is made is from that powder. And that's what we use to make Thai food, or Thai chilies, or excuse me, pad thai. Oh, lion's mane. Yeah, that makes sense. Lion's mane is for sure a mushroom. Yeah. Cool. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. I think I answered everyone's questions. If I missed anything, feel free and repeat yourself. I'll be here doing some dishes. So, if you want to help us hit that subscriber goal, hop over to YouTube. 3,500 by the end of the month. So hop over and check that out. Lots of new food coming up this Friday. We're doing dandang mian, which is going to be a sesame-based dandang mian, which has no meat in it. So that's actually adding to our another series that we're doing, adding to vegetarian recipes, which is. We have this whole list of playlists going on YouTube for vegetarian or recipes that can be adapted for vegetarian dishes, which I love adding to because I'm super, super tired of people trying to make tofu taste like meat, which is dumb. Stop making tofu taste like meat. Tofu doesn't taste like meat. But if you cook it right, it will taste good. Anyway, those are my gripes. Please do tune in this Friday. Lots of fun stuff coming up. Oh, Doremi, you've seen the gift recipe. Oh, cool. Do you need to buy Shaoxing wine? Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did spell it right. That is. Do you need to buy Shaoxing wine? You can probably buy some Shaoxing wine. If you don't want to buy, or if you can't find Shaoxing wine, you could just buy dry sherry, and it probably is going to taste a lot better. I was actually reading an article about Shaoxing wine recently, or what is sold in America that is called Shaoxing wine. And what's really tricky about Shaoxing wine is that it's often has other stuff in it. Super often it'll have like salt in it, which I didn't realize, but that actually makes total sense. This is probably why Shaoxing wine is so cheap. And probably if you buy yourself some like high quality dry cooking sherry, it's probably going to taste closer to what Shaoxing wine is supposed to taste like, which I might try that. But it's hard to pass up, because if you buy a bottle of Shaoxing wine, you could get it for I think A bottle of Shaoxing wine from the corner store is like $2. In dry cooking sherry, not that much more expensive, or it's not super expensive, but a bottle of dry cooking sherry is at least like $10. You're buying a bottle of wine, so it's at least going to cost the cost of a cheap bottle of wine. So, but yeah, Do-Re-Mi, that's cool. Thanks for tuning in to the gift recipes. Those are out every Friday too. If you haven't checked out, also if you follow on gift recipes, definitely check out the long form recipes over on YouTube. Those are a lot more thorough, and we kind of talk through some of the specifics behind those recipes. So, for sure, if you're following on gift recipes, check that out. Oh, yeah, bricks of tamarind where you have to squeeze the pulp out. Oh, that makes sense. So the trick is if you buy it in a jar. I find this problem with sour cream too. Is if you buy it in a jar, or like sometimes sour cream comes in a tub, when you scoop it out, depending on if that spoon is really, really clean, it will probably last longer than if you use a spoon that has something on it. So if the spoon is dirty, or if you like licked the spoon, it's going to spoil a lot quicker because you're introducing bacteria to the whatever you're scooping. So the reason that stuff, especially tamarind paste, but also sour cream, the reason that it's sold in a squeezed tube is because it will last longer, because it's not going to be exposed to, first of all, it's not even going to be exposed to air, but second of all, it's not going to be exposed to excess bacteria, so it will be more shelf stable because it's not going to have weird bacteria floating around that comes from your spoon. So, something that I discovered, I have never tried this with tamarind paste because I've never seen it in a tube, but I definitely do this with sour cream, so I buy it in a squeeze bottle because it lasts longer, and it will preserve longer because you're not introducing bacteria. Okay, Presidents, can you have some? Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, if your problem is to conflate your Asian recipes. So if you have a cupboard full of Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean noodles and spices, you're probably in a good spot. So like what I've found, and this is not like broad spectrum true, but just like as a general consensus, a lot of those ingredients that come from specifically like Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Thai have crossovers. So like a lot of those ingredients have similar equivalents that are passable as substitutes in each of their respective cuisines. So in Chinese food, for example, in Chinese food we use a spice that's called doubanjiang, and that's like a fermented chili paste, and it's how we introduce a lot of like really, really like bold heat. It comes from doubanjiang. You can do a similar thing with the Thai version, which is called sambo olek. It's the same thing, it's a fermented chili paste. In Korean food, there's a similar thing called gochujang, which is also a fermented chili paste. In Japanese food, we have something similar that's miso paste. It's also a little bit different because it's not quite as spicy. But all of those, they serve a very similar purpose. So you can use them, you can substitute them interchangeably. It's not going to be exactly the same, obviously, because they come from different cuisines. But you can use them interchangeably, and they're going to be pretty good subs. So you can do a similar thing with, in Chinese food, there's Shaoxing wine. Japanese food, it's sake. Korean food, we use soju. I've never tried soju as a cooking wine, but all of those things, they serve similar purposes. In Italian food, white wine, same thing, right? So all of those things, they have similar parallels, right? So if you have some of those things, but not all of those things, it will help you in the long run because you can probably substitute out a lot of those things. Oh, tamarind, it comes in a brick with seeds. I've never seen that. That's cool. Charlie, I've never seen that. That's pretty cool, though. Cool. All right, thanks, everyone. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll try and answer everyone as much as I can. And I'm going to eat something. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye.
club isn't the best place to find a lover, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends sat at the table doing shots, drinking fast, and then we talk slow. If you come over and start up a conversation with just me, then trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop, put Ben the Man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance. Now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me, said boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too, I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room, and now my bed sheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. One weekend we let the story begin. We're going out on our first date. You and me are thrifty, so go all you can eat. Fill up your bag and I fill up a plate. We talk for hours and hours about the sweet and the sour, and how your family is doing okay. We'll even get in a taxi, we'll kiss in the backseat, tell the driver make the radio play. Now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me, said boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too, I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room, and now my bed sheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. Come on, be my baby, come on. 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 Come on, be my baby, come on.